Social media is here and it is here to stay. Whether we use it to connect with others, reunite with old friends, keep in touch with current ones, or stay up to date with the world around us, we use social media a lot. In 2019, Twitter alone had 330 million monthly active users, so it is safe to assume that nowadays, in 2021, businesses should be looking to advertise and keep in touch with customers using social media. Hello, my name is Jonathan Keaton, and I want to talk to those of you who use social media to advertise and conduct your business and communicate with your clients and customers about how the rhetorical theory of intersectionality can and should play a huge role within the way you conduct your social media presence. Regardless of what business you are in and what social media platform you are beholden to, learning about intersectionality and applying the theory to the way you use social media will not only allow you to reach a wider and greater audience for your product or business, but it will also allow you to enhance your communications with customers and better your relationship with them. People from all over the world, all walks of life, and all types of backgrounds are using social media to think that as a business or advertiser, you could possibly be alienating or excluding someone without even knowing it should be something you would not want weighing on your conscience. So, that is where knowing about and considering intersectionality will help you conduct your business appropriately and accordingly to be more inclusive and welcoming to everyone. To understand how intersectional rhetoric can be applied to one's social media use, you must first understand what intersectional rhetoric is. Intersectional rhetoric is the broadening and focus on more than just one component of a person. For example, to think that as professionals you want to advertise to a product to women according to intersectionality, you must also realize that women are more than just their gender. There are white, black, Asian, Hispanic, Indian, and so on and so forth, women that are rich, poor, and have different religions and cultures associated to their character and the things they believe. To think that you want to just advertise to women would be negligent and a bad move marketing wise because you will not be reaching as broad an audience as you think you are going to reach. One theory within intersectional rhetoric is Lugonis' theory of curdling and separation. It is essentially a metaphor for intersectional rhetoric and is intended to help understand the need and usefulness of intersectional rhetoric. Separation is essentially an oppressor fragmenting a group by only identifying one thing that not everyone in the group may identify with, essentially separating the group into different groups and making the ones in the minority feel as though their voice cannot be heard. An example I can give of this is from personal experience as being a Cuban born within America. Other Cubans that were born in Cuba, even if they came to America at a young age and remember very little of their so-called Cuban experience, view me as an other and wouldn't consider any of my points of views when it comes to Cuba because I am not a real Cuban. Because they only consider where I am born and not where my family's from and what I know of their experiences and things of that nature. With all that being said, Lugones' theory of curdling and separation is more of an entry into thinking about intersectionality and the ways it can help resolve these sorts of issues within communities. So, with all that in mind, the theory of intersectionality essentially asks that one think about more than just the gender or race or culture or location of a person, but considers all of it at the same time. To tie this in with conducting business, marketing, and advertising on social media, I think that you should be applying this rhetorical theory to the way you approach social media, as it will allow you to reach a greater audience. If you are wondering why applying intersectionality when you market on social media is important, allow me to explain. The Quiet Country Closet Reconstructing a Discourse for Closeted Rural Experiences is an article and video essay by Garrett W. Nichols where they talk about their queer experience within a rural community. Nichols approaches the topic from the stance of someone who feels like an outsider and how he feels as though he could not relate to the people around him because he is gay. The popular depiction of rural men never included gay men, and when they did, it always resulted in a tragic outcome for the gay character. When thinking about this with intersectional rhetoric in mind, we should remember that Nichols is not just a gay man or a countryman or a white man, but he is all of those and much more. This video essay is great in that it points out the different intersections that a person may identify with. To apply this to social media marketing, we should remember when interacting with others and a consumer base that we are not just advertising to whatever group is chosen, but groups of people who may identify with this target group and much more. Applying an intersectional way of thinking to the way we market on social media can help those who feel as if they are left out become welcomed and more open to being part of a consumer base or social media presence. I want to lead this into a supporting theory called muted group theory. Linda Lee Smith Barkman has a great article on this theory and explains it as a sociological tool that aids in the study of interactions between dominant and subdominant groups, including, but not limited to, men and women. In short, it is a theory about referring to the ways that a dominant group in society, purposefully or not, can mute or make the non-dominant group feel as though they are not able to be heard. It has three basic tenets referring to dominance, acceptability, and subordination. But what is important is that the outcome is always that the dominant group establishes acceptable modes of expressions and such that do not consider the non-dominant group nor their experiences. I refer to this theory because I feel it can closely tie in with intersectionality in that if we do not view people with these intersections in mind, we may be excluding a group unintentionally due to not being able to hear them because they perceive the world different. Understanding muted group theory is useful in that it can teach us to be able to create a welcoming space for everyone to come in and have an open space to speak. As professionals conducting any kind of communication online, allowing others to be able to be heard and know that they are being heard should be extremely important, and I feel that if you understand intersectionality and applying it when using social media to market your company or business, it will be extremely beneficial. To provide you with an example of good intersectional social media use, I want to talk about an article titled Platforming Intersectionality, Networked Solidarity, and the Limits of Corporate Social Media, written by Amar Jean Christian, Faith Day, Mark Diaz, and Chelsea Peterson Salahuddin. They wrote an article about algorithms and how they may work against marginalized communities and not allow them to gain exposure. However, one important thing they wrote about within their article is about a website called Open Television that describes itself as an intersectional platform and how it platforms different kinds of movies and shows and shorts that are not usually shown to wider audiences. This led to two of the movies within this platform to gain huge exposure, leading to one of them being nominated for an Emmy. This article is a good example because it shows when making use of intersectionality and considering more than just one aspect of a person, you can reach such a greater audience than you normally would. To provide you with an example of negative intersectional social media use, I want to refer to G. Pat Patterson and Spencer G. Leland's article titled Towards Trans Rhetorical Agency, a critical analysis of trans topics in rhetoric and composition and communication scholarship. This article is about the ways in which trans communities are spoken for but never allowed to speak. It addresses many concerns that LGBT communities have, especially when using social media, that their voices will not be heard or that they will be caricatured and fall victim to being stereotyped. So, a good example of this is looking at the ways LGBT communities communicate within social media space and copying the way they talk to seem relevant as if you are one of them. You do not want to come off as mocking a community of people. Instead, you want to let that community know that they are welcome regardless of race, gender, sexuality, etc. With all these articles and examples in mind, you may want to understand a good way of applying intersectional rhetoric to marketing on social media. If you're advertising a video game, for example, it may be easy to forget that gamers are not just young white boys and continue to market towards that group. Regardless of the kind of game you are attempting to market, using your social media presence to show off different characters within the game that others may identify with, different aspects of the game that may interest groups outside of your basic target group, and even consider when tweeting about the game, for example, using language that does not feel exclusionary to other groups of people. I think a good example of this is to not target certain aspects of a person, instead just market the game as a product to be enjoyed by everyone regardless of age, group, sexuality, and race. Many marketing teams fail this because they focus on specific identity of a group that may be interested in the game and fail to market themselves as inclusive to others. Whether the game is inclusive or not, if you fail at marketing yourself as inclusive, people may view the game from a stereotypical point of view as just being for young boys. Thank you all for taking the time to listen to me, and I hope that this talk has been helpful and inspires you to make your social media use more intersectional so that you can reach greater customer bases and expand your business to be opening and accepting of all kinds of people and not just one or two kinds of people.